We're breaking into programming because of something that you might be seeing just to the west of downtown Denver. Smoke pouring out of Empower Field. We've been watching for about 10 or 15 minutes now, smoke coming out of the east-northeast side of the inside of the stadium. That, of course, a look at the stadium as the smoke now whiter or grayer than it has been. For a while, though, we've been watching black smoke pumping out of what appears to be the suite or the club levels, again, on the east side of the stadium. Not receiving much word yet as to what is taking place. Of course, the stadium empty at Empower Field. That gray smoke you see in the center of your screen there is much calmer than what we've been watching. We've been watching, as I said, very thick, very black smoke, and at times pouring out aggressively from that area. No idea what is going on at the stadium right now. Usually during these off seasons away from football games, while there are events and sometimes even meetings held at different parts of the facility, oftentimes the stadium is undergoing minor renovations, repairs, or upgrades. So there is often work taking place in what is an otherwise empty stadium. So there are usually a pretty steady traffic of workers and other people working their way through the stadium. What we're trying to determine, of course, is what has happened here. Again, this taking place just within the last 30 minutes or so, and you can see it's been quite a sight for people outside of the stadium. As a matter of fact, I was just getting a text with some pictures from the Broncos kicker from the 1980s, Rich Carlos. Rich said he was heading there for a meeting. Well, when he saw the smoke, he turned around, went home, figured the meeting was off, and just was alerting me to what's happening there. But again, we are just trying to determine more about what has happened and what is continuing to happen out at Empower Field. Of course, you think of the quiet times for this stadium. This certainly would be one of them at this time of year. And now we are starting to get a look at some fire crews that have been able to run some lines. That is taking place there in the, if they could pull out a little more, I think that's the lower level where they'd be just below what's happening there. Again, our cameras are just trying to sort things out. So yeah, those firefighters are working down from level 1 up towards what we appear to be maybe on the concourse level or more likely the club or suite level on the east side up to the north end of the stadium. So it certainly got everyone's attention. The question is what has happened and how they're going to manage taking care of this. Now, Sky 9 is closing in on the stadium now and will certainly be able to give us a better look from the west side. While this may look like Sky 9 is close, there's a very powerful lens. They're shooting and coming in from the north side. So we'll hang in there for a minute and try to get a good look once Sky 9 gets closer to being directly over Empower Field. It is something to understand how stadiums are built. This stadium was built and opened on September 10th of 2001. Of course, it was a famous Monday nighter, the Giants and the Broncos playing, and then the next day, of course, was 9/11. But for more than 20 years now, this has served not only as home to the Broncos, but many concerts, big soccer matches have been held here. So many people have been going in and out of there for the better part of 20 years. And the stadium itself has evolved and been upgraded in different ways throughout the course of its years. But now we're trying to talk about what is happening today and how this apparent fire started. It certainly looked like a fire with the volume of smoke that was generated by whatever did happen at the field a little bit after 2 o'clock. So Sky 9 will close in and get us a better look at the ballpark and what has happened here. We've already seen some Denver fire there, and we're trying to get a better handle on what sort of firefighting availability is always at the stadium. So let's go back a few minutes and give you a better look at how this looked as it caught everyone's attention, as the smoke turned black. This from outside, a grayer look at that smoke as it started to come out of the stadium. But this was the look from more or less just a little bit above that fire and to the left, and you could see that it was not a small fire. It was a serious fire, and it generated quite a bit of that acrid black smoke. So we're piecing together, awaiting information, of course, from Denver Fire and from stadium officials as to what has happened today out there at the stadium. Of course, you see the famed Bronco horsehead logo that sits up in the north end. And now as we look live from Sky 9, you can see the horse at the south end of the stadium. And then as this turns a little bit towards the left, we'll start to see exactly where this fire and smoke was emanating from and what, if any, damage was done. And it might be the case where most of the damage done is on the interior, the concourse and suite level shells. And then you have to sort out exactly what may have happened here, what triggered this from taking place. So Sky 9 closing in, we get a better look, and not too much to see at this point from that vista as far as anything that looks like it may have been where something started. Get a good look with you here where you can see fire officials have created fire lines, delivering water where need be up through that first level. And then you have the main concourse right above at the top there. And then you have the other levels, the clubs and the suites. But no real external signs that at least I can see of anything there that would make you believe that's where the smoke was or the fire was, where things got started. So again, it appears to have been in the interior of that east side at the north end of the stadium. We'll try to get a better handle on what may have caused all that smoke, but that's the latest. It certainly is something that if you were driving by on I-25 or if you were looking out of a building from downtown, you would have noticed Empower Field having a fire of some sort. Well, we will get that information for you, and we'll get you pictures as far as what did happen and what is happening now. All that's coming up on 4 o'clock at 9 News. So now we return you to your regular programming.
Waiting a little bit longer. I wanted to see if there was more people out. Let me know when you're ready. Let me know you must be ready. Anything over here? Okay. Pixley, P as in Paul, I, X as in X-ray, L-E-Y, captain with the Denver Fire Department. So around 2:15, we received a report of a fire, and we received a fire alarm activation in Mile High Stadium. When our crews were responding, they noticed a plume of black smoke that was coming over the top of the stadium itself, so we knew that there was a pretty good fire. Our crews found that there was fire that was originating in the suite area on level 4, and there was also fire that was penetrating part of the seats on the 3rd level. This type of plastic that the seats are composed of burns with not only significant ferocity, very large flames, but also produces a tremendous amount of black smoke due to the synthetics and petroleum products that are used. That meant that that fire was going to need a great deal of help from our firefighters, as the sprinkler systems that had been activated could not get ahead of the fire. Our crews realized that they needed assistance, so they started a second alarm assignment. We had approximately 75 firefighters on scene at the pinnacle or the height of the fire. Our firefighters were able to put together a firefighting approach that was able to extinguish the fire in as quick as time as possible. We think that we have the main body of fire under control at this time, but we're looking to ensure that fire hasn't penetrated anywhere else. As I mentioned, this fire burns very hot, and that could auto-expose, or it could cause fire to extend into other areas of the stadium. We're lucky to have had the capability to get ahead of the fire, and we are lucky that the sprinkler system started to hold the fire in check. But anybody that was responding to the scene around 2:30 saw that this was a significant fire. Historically, we had a very similar fire when we tore down the old Mile High Stadium, where the plastic seats also caught on fire. So our firefighters have an experience with this type of firefight. We were lucky, though, that there were no firefighters injured, and I'm not aware of any injuries to any employee personnel that were working in the stadium itself. So we're lucky there, and that showed how disciplined Mile High Stadium's personnel were. In fact, security assisted us to get to the fire level. Right now we're in an investigative phase. Our fire investigators are here to try to determine what actually caused such a significant fire. And of course, once their analysis is done, I'll be able to provide that. But we won't know anything in the short term. Might I ask or answer any questions that you guys have?
We've heard that since it was the off season, there could have been work being done with welding on seats or anything like that. Is that being looked at as a cause of the fire? Was there any welding being done today? I'm
unaware of any maintenance that was being done, but our fire investigators are going to go through a thorough analysis of not only the fire area, but the things that actually were taking place in that environment. I did see that there was some type of event going on the 2nd level. I don't think that had anything to do with it, but our concern would be that there are people that are inside of a structure like Mile High Stadium while a significant fire is going on. So the personnel here did their due diligence in ensuring that everybody was evacuated. So also what I can say is the stadium was not unoccupied.
Anybody get hurt?
Again, I have no reported injuries, and let's hope it stays that way.
Do you know how big of an area was damaged? And it looks from your pictures that there's a pretty good amount of damage there.
I would estimate over 1,000 square foot, easy. And that's just a quick estimation of the area that I was adjacent to while the firefight was taking place.
Did they have to use any specific tools other than water, any foam or anything?
No, luckily we didn't. And of course, foam would help in this type of petroleum fire, but we did not have to utilize any foam. And but that's a great question.
When they're running inside, I mean, this is not your typical structure fire. Are there inherent challenges with dealing with a fire somewhere like this?
You know, I'm proud to say that the Denver Fire Department is very well experienced. Again, I talked about the historic approach that we have already had years ago when Old Mile High Stadium was here. We operate and fight fires in high rises that would involve stair climbs like we had today. And anytime you have a fire on an upper level, you're going to have to remove, or you're going to have to move a great deal of equipment to that environment. So our firefighters brought a number of heavy pieces of hose and equipment, saws and the like, to be able to help them extinguish this fire.
I imagine something this large obviously attracts a lot of attention when people are driving by and seeing it. You probably got a lot of 911 calls as well.
Yes, and I'm sure that our firefighters who are in dispatch were able to handle that. And it's always important, regardless of the fact that there might have been other 911 phone calls, is that the people in City and County of Denver don't hesitate to call 911 at the first sign of a fire or emergency.
Anything else that we've missed?
No, I don't think so. Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions?
How many people
So, yes, sir. Oh,
how many people were in the stadium at the time?
Unknown at this time, but hopefully, I would imagine that the stadium management will be able to provide that type of information. For us, we came in, people were leaving the building, so it's going to take a guess. But again, there was an event going on the second level, so I'm sure that there was at least 100 people.
You mentioned the sprinkler systems. I imagine that there's sprinkler systems on the areas that are indoors and covered by
Yes.
overhangs. Is that correct?
So there were sprinklers in the suite area that were affected immediately by the fire. In the seated areas on the third level that are diagonal, as we've all been in stadiums, the fire just fed the next level and the next level, and it really compounded the whole situation. But we do not have sprinklers in the open seated areas.
Do you happen to know if there were any upgrades being done to the fire system or the
No,
fire?
I'm not aware, but I can tell you the sprinklers were working because I saw them and I saw that they were working to attack the fire. But again, the significance of a fire like this, with the amount of petroleum products that are burning, creates significant heat. And those sprinklers did as well as they could, and our firefighters were able to put in place hose lines to reduce the amount of damage. So I'm very thankful of our efforts in terms of trying to keep the damage to a minimum.
You know better than I do on how these things work. When all of the sprinkler systems are activated, does that cause some damage to the rest of the stadium?
Well, and that's a fallacy. Not all the sprinklers throughout the Mile High Stadium were activated. Only the areas that were affected by that fire would activate, so that all the water and all the energy was focused on that fire environment.
Final question for me: are there any structural challenges?
Now, that's going to be something that we're going to have to look at. We're going to work with the building department, of course, stadium management, to ensure that there wasn't more damage other than the chairs, the environment in the suite area, the glass, and so on. So that is certainly something that's going to be evaluated.
In the days to come.
Yep. Right. Any other questions? Hey,
They're
Greg,
taking
how
theirs off,
are
we're
you?
putting ours on.
All right.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Let me get you this. Here, grab
you
this.
jacket.
Yeah.